government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
The only man currently facing charges in the case, Dwayne Kei D. Davis, claims that Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, paid for a hit on Tupac.
Could Diddy really have been involved in one of the most infamous moments in hip-hop history? The question has been buzzing in the air for years, but now things are getting hotter than ever. Some fresh revelations suggest that the music mogul, Sean Diddy Combs, might have played a more significant role in the event that shook the world back in the 90s, the passing of Shakur.
Now for what's trending in true crime, nearly 30 years after the death of legendary rapper Tupac Shakur, the man accused of his is now claiming that Sean Diddy Combs once ordered a hit on the rap icon. In a recent court filing, a 2009 interview between police and Dwayne Kei D. Davis is making headlines yet again.
So what's bringing this story back into the spotlight? Well, let's rewind a little. We all know about the East Coast-West Coast rivalry that dominated the hip-hop scene back in the day, with Shakur representing the West and Diddy, alongside his protege Biggie Smalls, holding it down for the East. But now it's not just music beef we're talking about. There are rumors, fresh investigations, and some wild accusations that Diddy might have been involved in planning something way more serious. The fact that these rumors just won't go away is starting to get people talking. And most importantly, it's getting law enforcement interested again.
The story we're tracking, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs on side watch at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center after two judges denied his request for bail. This as a grand jury is expected to hear new testimony from workers very soon.
Here's the deal. Recently, a series of reports dropped claiming that federal investigators have been working closely with local prosecutors on a collaboration that could potentially link Diddy to the unthinkable. Yes, you heard that right. This isn't just fan gossip or tabloid rumors anymore. Serious investigators are now allegedly looking into the possibility that Diddy had something to do with the events surrounding Shakur's untimely demise. And it doesn't end there. According to insiders, Shakur's family has hired private investigators to dig into Diddy's connection to the whole affair. That's right. Shakur's family is not taking this lightly, and neither are the feds.
It has taken countless hours, really decades, of work by the men and women of our homicide section to get to where we are today.
Now, let's talk about the key player in all of this, Kei D. If you're not familiar with him, Kei D is a self-confessed gang kingpin from Los Angeles who was allegedly in the car when Shakur was fatally injured in 1996. Kei D has become a central figure in the investigations, and let's just say he's not staying quiet anymore. In fact, he's been dropping bombshells left and right, and it's his alleged information that might finally connect the dots between Diddy and Tupac's last moments.
So why do you think they tied Diddy name to it?
Because it makes the East Coast and West Coast war works for the authorities and for the news media. Didn't no cops do that. It was an East Coast, West Coast war, and it was a drive-by shooting. It was never no damn drive-by shooting.
Kei D has reportedly been cooperating with law enforcement, and get this, he's claimed that Diddy might have been the one pulling the strings all along. In previous interviews, including an eye-popping sit-down with Vlad TV, Kei D spilled details about that fateful night in Las Vegas. According to him, a notorious chain of events led to Shakur being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but what really caught everyone's attention is his claim that the whole thing wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment act. He suggested that Diddy had some kind of involvement. He even dropped hints that a high-profile figure, whom many have speculated to be Diddy, offered a large sum of money to make things happen. And that's where things start to get really interesting.
Why doesn't the government want him to turn himself in? Because then they can't ask for detention. So they go and they arrest him. They arrest a guy who came to New York to turn himself in.
You see, Kei D didn't stop there. He's hinted multiple times that Diddy's involvement might have gone way deeper than anyone thought. In his memoir, Compton Street Legends, Kei D detailed how the whole operation went down, and while he didn't explicitly name names in certain parts, he left enough breadcrumbs for readers and investigators to pick up on. The narrative is becoming clearer. Diddy might have been more than just a bystander in the East Coast-West Coast rivalry.
P. Diddy has consistently denied any involvement in Tupac's murder. He stated multiple times that he had no connection to the event. And in an interview with Vanity Fair in 2017, he said, "I never had anything to do with any of the violence that was going on during that time."
And here's where the plot thickens. Federal investigators aren't just sitting on this information. Sources say they've been in contact with local prosecutors in Las Vegas, sharing details from various investigations, including evidence collected over nearly 30 years. The goal: to figure out if Diddy really was involved in orchestrating what went down. And it's not just about Shakur's family wanting justice. These investigators seem determined to get to the bottom of this decades-old mystery. According to one insider, this collaboration between federal and local authorities is the most extensive probe into the case yet, and they're pulling in witnesses and looking into old files that may have been overlooked.
This has to be a 100% culture shock. I can't imagine living a lifestyle of the incredibly rich and famous and then going into this very dark, impersonal, cold, austere facility.
Shakur's family is all in too. They've hired top-tier lawyers, including big names like Alex Spiro and Christopher Claw, to represent them in their quest for the truth. This isn't just a run-of-the-mill investigation. They're going full throttle to find out if Diddy had any role in what happened. It's worth mentioning that the family has been vocal in the past about seeking justice for Shakur, but this time they're backing it up with serious legal muscle. Some reports even suggest they're planning to file a lawsuit if they can uncover evidence linking Diddy to the case.
They pressing him so bad, and I don't know how I should say this, that a week or two ago, they beat him up in jail. The cops.
Of course, Diddy has always maintained his innocence, brushing off rumors and speculation as baseless. But let's face it, when you're implicated in something as high profile as this, and when the allegations keep resurfacing, it's tough to simply walk away without raising eyebrows. Especially when people like Kei D continue to drop new information. But what's really driving this renewed interest in Diddy's potential involvement? It seems that several events over the past year have reignited old suspicions. First, Diddy's former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, came forward with shocking allegations of her own about the music mogul.
There are some problems that the defense has brought up originally, but it seems like, just from reading this 14-page indictment, that there is enough physical evidence to perhaps get a conviction in this case. We shall see. These are allegations.
While her claims weren't directly related to the Shakur case, they painted a troubling picture of Diddy's personal life and raised questions about his behavior behind the scenes. Some are now speculating that Cassie's allegations might have opened the door for others to step forward with new information or corroborate old rumors.
If you got to run to a private island because your evil doings are doing so much and they storming your house.
Adding more fuel to the fire is the fact that federal authorities recently raided 2 of Diddy's properties, reportedly looking for evidence tied to a much larger investigation. While the initial focus seemed to be on other charges, there are whispers that some of the information gathered during those raids could connect Diddy to the events surrounding Shakur's passing. We don't know for sure what was uncovered, but the fact that law enforcement is digging into his past raises some serious questions.
You know, I think in federal court and for these charges, they would say it's routine, but in the public realm, this is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, I mean, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in a...
Let's not forget about retired Los Angeles FBI field officer Phil Carson, who has been dropping some intriguing insights into what might be going on behind the scenes. Carson suggested that Kei D may have decided to spill the beans on Diddy as a way to save himself. He pointed out that it's not like the old days when people would stay quiet out of loyalty. Nowadays, it's every man for himself, and Kei D might have seen this as his ticket to a lighter sentence or even some form of protection. Carson's comments definitely raised some eyebrows and added a layer of credibility to the whole theory.
Well, I'd certainly view everything he's saying with a lot of suspicion, right? I mean, he was in an interrogation in 2009 and offered this information up. And if he's truly involved in the of Tupac, he's looking to throw anything out there, to throw mirrors out there to deflect the accusations against him onto someone else.
At the same time, retired LAPD Detective Greg Kei D has been a vocal figure in this case for years. Back in 2008 and 2009, Kei D led an investigation that allegedly uncovered a lot of details about what happened the night Shakur was taken out. He even released a documentary where he claimed that Diddy put out a large sum to take care of both Shakur and Suge Knight in retaliation for the escalating tension between East Coast and West Coast rappers. According to Kei D was in on the plan, and his nephew, Orlando Anderson, was the one who pulled the trigger.
Now, Combs has long denied any involvement with Tupac's murder. He's never been charged. Our question this morning, how believable is Kei D's Diddy accusation?
But here's the kicker. Kei D's investigation was met with mixed reactions at the time. Some people believed he was onto something, while others dismissed his findings as just another conspiracy theory. However, now that Kei D is talking more openly about that night, it seems like Kei D's claims are getting a second look. Could it be that the detective was right all along? And if so, what does that mean for Diddy?
Named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac.
Let's not forget about the rumors swirling around that Diddy had a strange obsession with Shakur. Some sources claim that Diddy admired Shakur's success and may have even wanted to emulate his path, both in music and acting. According to some reports, Diddy was so fixated on Shakur's career that he mimicked one of Shakur's award speeches during his own Grammy acceptance. While this might seem like a small detail, it has left many wondering if there was more to their rivalry than just musical competition. Was there a personal vendetta simmering beneath the surface?
Housing unit is a 24-hour lockdown unit, which means that any movement within that unit is controlled and coordinated, and no inmate moves outside of his cell without being in full restraints, to include leg irons, handcuffs, a belly chain, and at least 2, if not 3 staff members escorting them.
As more pieces of the puzzle come together, it's becoming clear that this isn't just a simple case of gang rivalry gone wrong. There might have been deeper motivations at play, and investigators seem determined to find out exactly what they were. And with Kei D reportedly spilling more and more about what happened back then, Diddy's name keeps coming up in all the wrong ways. But the big question remains, will anything concrete come of it? Or will Diddy manage to escape these rumors once again, just as he has in the past?
And certainly Mr. Davis will have his opportunity to present whatever evidence he wishes to.
And now, things are really starting to heat up. With Kei D allegedly singing like a canary and all eyes on Diddy, the real question becomes, what happens next? Can Diddy's empire survive this kind of scrutiny? Or are the walls finally closing in on one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop?
That this is the end of the Diddy story as we know it.
Let's dive deeper into the mess that's unfolding. Kei D's confessions have been circulating for years, but now they're gaining a new kind of weight, especially with all the other pieces of the puzzle falling into place. According to Kei D, he wasn't just some random bystander during the incident. He was there. He'd admitted multiple times that he was in the white Cadillac that pulled up next to Shakur's car in Vegas. And, of course, he's repeatedly claimed that he didn't act alone.
You heard about Diddy law firm breaking ties with him and Miami Beach taking his day away?
Well, all the things that happened to Diddy and he losing friends, companies, cities, city names, city girls.
In his confessions, both in interviews and in his memoir, Kei D has alluded to a well-orchestrated plan, a plan that might have been set in motion by someone higher up the food chain. And here's where Diddy comes into the picture again. Kei D has dropped enough hints that suggest there was a significant amount of money involved in orchestrating the event, reportedly handed over to infamous gang figure Eric Von Zip, with Diddy rumored to be the one pulling the financial strings. This is where things get really murky because although Kei D hasn't named Diddy outright every time, the breadcrumbs are all there for anyone willing to piece them together.
This case, this is a case that it's going to take some nuance, that's for sure.
And the authorities. Well, they're definitely paying attention. Reports are swirling that investigators are not only revisiting old leads, but also opening new lines of inquiry based on Kei D's confessions. While the initial focus was on building a rock-solid case against Kei D, now the attention has shifted to exploring whether Diddy's involvement went beyond just East Coast-West Coast rivalry. Federal authorities have reportedly been talking to Las Vegas prosecutors, sharing years' worth of evidence and witness statements, all in an effort to figure out if there's enough to bring charges against Diddy.
They got to come up with some kind of evidence, and they got to have Kei D say and point to some kind of evidence, which I don't think he could, that Diddy put out the hit on Tupac. Yeah, they gonna press him.
For years, these rumors have hovered in the background of hip-hop culture, but it looks like the investigators are finally taking them seriously. Kei D has already done enough to implicate himself. There's no denying that, but his recent comments have taken the situation to a whole new level. Let's not forget that in his infamous Vlad TV interview, Kei D went into vivid detail about what happened that night. He talked about how his nephew Orlando Anderson took matters into his own hands, even though Kei D was originally supposed to be the one to handle things. Lane starts blasting, he said, confirming that he was right there in the car when everything went down. If Kei D was willing to share those details so openly, who knows what else he's revealed behind closed doors?
3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
And that's the point. This isn't just about what Kei D has said publicly. The bigger question is, what has he told investigators in private? There's a growing sense that Kei D might have flipped on Diddy to save himself. Former LAPD Detective Greg Kei D, who investigated the case in the late 2000s, has long believed that Diddy offered a large sum to take out both Shakur and Suge Knight. Kei D was central to that investigation, and now that he's back in the spotlight, it's entirely possible that he's cooperating with the feds to cut a deal. As former FBI field agent Phil Carson pointed out, it's not like the olden days of the Italian mafia, where everybody kept their mouth shut. If Kei D feels the heat, there's a good chance he's saying whatever he needs to say to avoid the harshest consequences.
He's the only witness that's tying Puff to the Pac thing. The only witness that's alive.
But what about Diddy? So far, he's denied having anything to do with Tupac's passing, brushing off the allegations as baseless. However, his silence on the recent developments is noticeable. Sure, Diddy has always been great at maintaining his public image. He's the ultimate businessman after all. But this time, things are different. The sheer volume of allegations and the fact that federal authorities are now involved make it difficult for him to simply dismiss these claims as wild rumors. Even some of Diddy's industry peers are starting to weigh in on the matter. In a track that dropped not too long ago, Eminem took a not-so-subtle jab at Diddy, reigniting the conversation about his potential involvement. The lyrics left no room for ambiguity, as Eminem essentially suggested that Diddy was guilty and that the truth would eventually come out. While Eminem has always been known for stirring the pot, it's worth noting that he's not the only one raising questions. Shakur's family has been fighting for answers for years, but now, with Kei D's confessions and the increased pressure on Diddy, they're doubling down. As mentioned earlier, the family has hired top-notch lawyers and private investigators to look into the connection between Diddy and the events that unfolded in the 90s. They're reportedly focusing their efforts on finding any evidence that could tie Diddy to the case, and they're not ruling out the possibility of pursuing legal action if anything concrete comes up.
Took Sean Diddy Combs into custody. He's seen in this video entering the Park Hyatt Hotel in Midtown Manhattan with others when agents from Homeland Security Investigations approach and separate him. They place Combs under arrest and lead him out the front door in handcuffs.
One of the family members who has been especially vocal about the case is Shakur's brother, Mopreme Shakur. Mopreme has always been an advocate for justice, but after Kei D's arrest and his resurfaced interviews, Mopreme is more convinced than ever that Diddy should be looked at more closely. In a recent interview, Mopreme recalled a phone call he received from Diddy years ago, where Diddy claimed he had nothing to do with what happened to Shakur. Mopreme wasn't convinced back then, and now he's even more skeptical. The truth is yet to come out, Mopreme said, and with the renewed focus on Diddy's involvement, he's hopeful that the answers they've been seeking for decades might finally be within reach.
So I think now might be the time, especially with Mr. Davis facing life in prison, that maybe he's going to be a little more forthcoming.
So, what happens if the investigators do find a link between Diddy and the events of that fateful night in Vegas? Well, that could open up a whole new can of worms. For one, it could lead to criminal charges, which would be a massive blow not just to Diddy's career, but to his entire legacy. Diddy has built an empire over the past few decades, becoming a major player in the music industry and beyond, with ventures in fashion, television, and business. But if these rumors are substantiated, all of that could come crashing down. Moreover, it would raise questions about who else might have been involved. While Kei D and Orlando Anderson have long been in the spotlight, Diddy's potential connection could bring other high-profile figures into the fold. And let's not forget about Suge Knight. Although Suge and Shakur were on the same side of the East Coast-West Coast divide, their relationship wasn't without its tensions. Could Suge have known more about the situation than he let on? With Kei D and Diddy both under the microscope, it's not entirely out of the question that more revelations about the key players in this saga will come to light.
Kirk, this could potentially be a diversion, turning an investigation or a trial into a circus. And it's, when you do that, it's easier to get a dismissal. Ask Alec Baldwin. But the judge has already accused attorneys for Davis of shaping media attention about the case involving, as you know, one of hip hop's most fascinating mysteries, saying it seems like your plan, your end goal here is to make some kind of show.
And of course, this isn't just about the legal implications, it's about the cultural impact, too. Shakur's passing was one of the most shocking moments in music history, and for decades, fans have been searching for answers. If Diddy is found to have played a role, it would forever alter how we think about the East Coast, West Coast, West Coast rivalry, not to mention how we view Diddy as an artist, producer, and businessman. His reputation would be tainted, and the narrative surrounding his rise to power would be called into question. So, where does this leave us? Well, the pressure is mounting on Diddy from all angles. Kei D's confessions have thrown a wrench into the story that many people thought they already knew. The authorities are circling, Shakur's family is on the offensive, and the public is watching closely. Even fans have started to weigh in, with some calling for justice, while others remain skeptical that anything will come of these latest developments. It's clear that Diddy's past isn't going to stay buried for long. With every new piece of information that surfaces, the puzzle gets a little more complicated. And while we don't know how this will all play out just yet, one thing is for sure, the truth, whatever it may be, is inching closer and closer to the surface. So, what do you think? Is there really something to these accusations? Or is Diddy just caught in the crossfire of hip-hop's most notorious rivalry? And if Kei D is telling the truth, what does that mean for the future of one of the most powerful figures in the music industry? Let's talk about it in the comments below and stay tuned, because this story is far from over.